Hi, Katie. Welcome to the very first Safe Wellbeing kind of mini webinar. This is an introduction to the Safe Wellbeing. Is it a podcast or what are you calling it?
Podcast. Yeah.
Podcast. Right. Yeah. Cool. Okay. I think the first thing we want to do is just learn a little bit more about you. What is your journey, and how does it intersect with the funeral industry and also mental health?
Okay, easy way to describe that would be I am born into the industry, having parents who are first generation funeral directors. So I've grown up knowing nothing more, nothing less, I suppose. We've grown up with sacrifice of dad being on call, only off one every 6 weeks. 10 years ago, this month, July 2024, I got asked to help for a couple of days post-college course. Didn't really know what I wanted to do with life as such at that point. And yeah, it's been the longest 2 days I've ever had. So I've been full-time in the industry now for 10 years, taking on various roles, do every aspect of the job that you can think of. And yeah, just sort of grew into it very naturally. And then 2020, kind of COVID, I had mental health from about 16 with anxiety and depression, but got controllable through it. Still working, still, living life as much as you can. And then in 2020, I took a breakdown. I think COVID accelerated it. It was going to happen, but COVID certainly accelerated it and it happened quicker. So yeah, was off work, could hardly function for 3 months, lost so much weight. I was just shy of 6 stone, so 35 kilograms. Always remember that figure. Yeah, so after 3 months, went back to work, was desperate to get back to some form of normality. Shouldn't have went back when I did, but nobody was going to tell me I wasn't going back at that point. So Dad was like, all right, okay, don't anger her, just let her do it. So yeah, and basically came back into the industry with different eyes, different ears, different mindset, a different body, a different everything, which led me to go and train as a personal trainer, to go and become a mental health and exercise coach. And really, basically, while everybody was trying to enjoy themselves post-COVID, I was studying, YouTubing, learning, listening, reading, as much as I could on mental health, on bereavement, on grieving, on everything, just to put into perspective of this idea of bringing mental health and the funeral industry to allow them to work together. I was never allowed to talk about it in the beginning. If I can say it, 10 years ago, you were just got up and got on with it. You can't be weak.
Yeah.
You can't be ill. You've got to remember that a family is worse off than you. That's why they're sitting in front of you. And just different perceptions with it. So yeah, now it's great that we've all came together. We've started a conversation. Conversation has led to being a part of, talking to people in a different way, have people approach me, as well as, having conversations amongst, funeral homes themselves and things like that. And I've had the privilege of visiting some, just to get my insight and just chat, just basically, informally chatting about, looking after staff and things. So it's been amazing that something that was so bad that happened to me, that, I was almost having to go to a facility to get help.
Sure.
Actually, it's turned into something great. And
positive,
something to give back. Yeah, something to give back. As much as we do for a family, it's also that mindset to do it for other people.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting. I think you kind of touched upon there the fact that it was, and in some cases it still is, it's not mental health in the funeral profession. It's always families come first, irrespective. And I always think back to one of the earliest lessons I got taught in management was that, you should always adopt put your own oxygen mask on first before you attend to anybody else. And that often is not the case when it comes to people looking after their own mental health before they attend to anyone else. And it's always been this big disconnect between discussing mental health challenges and the funeral sector. It's bizarre how there's been this chasm between. Oh, have you found that it's changed over the last so many years?
Yeah, and it was actually, my dad, we were very open about And I always remember we had a conversation not that long ago, actually, and it was kind of two things that stuck. It was, he's obviously of a different generation, where you just got up and got with it. You know, he's 40 years in the profession in total. But at the same time, he had to change because of what happened to me.
Yeah.
He went from being that generation where you just got on with it, you know, mental health doesn't exist, to mental health does exist. He had to, you know, and when he had to take a step back and say to the staff, listen, I need to go home for a week to look after my family. Yes, it has massively changed. I'm only putting it in our perspective of us as a family business, us as an independent funeral director, when that's the case. And now, you know, we're able to have a conversation with staff. You know, we've got a local celebrant that we work with closely who has been able to come in and sit with us and openly say, I'm depressed.
Yeah.
You would never have even been able to have that connection with the outer kind of third parties that we work with. So I couldn't be, as maybe some people say it's weird, but I couldn't be happier of how it makes me more confident in the future as a next generation, to know that we can do this, we can actually have balance in life, and it's just going to make the service that we provide for every family, as we represent SAFE, as we represent the independence, as we represent all these changes through the slight negativity that we've had in the media recently, that we're just going to come out better and stronger for it, massively.
Yeah, well said. I think it's interesting you touched upon COVID, and I think you and I were talking before about the very first Saturday-based education day, which we tested in Northern Ireland in Belfast. And I was astonished that we actually called up every single member in Northern Ireland and said, what do you want to talk about? And I had a natural assumption it was going to be this topic or that topic. And mental health was overwhelmingly the number one. And I do often reflect back on that, and I think, did COVID create that change for everyone? Did it change in, you know, living circumstances and working situation? I suppose, was it? I mean, what's your thought? Do you think COVID was a trigger for this?
Yeah, I think it was kind of like getting hit in the face quickly, like unexpectedly, with a lot of people. I think it's forced our hands. I think it's forced it to be spoken about. I always think about, you know, if I was to come and when I first approached Terry about I sent an email, I always remember it. I sent an email just talking about it, and could it have been done a few years before that? Probably not. Or it could have been, but it maybe wouldn't have been responded to as a whole in the way it could have been. So, I think having that forced hand has made it so much better, so much easier. But then look at what things have become easier because of COVID as well. So it does fall into that. It's not just singling that out. But out of all the positive changes that COVID has done for all of us as individuals, if we just took a moment to think about it, actually, the forcing of our hands has been brilliant.
Yeah, I would agree. I think in a number of areas across the profession, from digitization of processes and things have got simpler, but I do think the openness that has been promoted, I would agree with you there. I think there's a combination of people who probably haven't spoken about it or felt comfortable speaking about mental health issues. But at the same time, I think there's people who didn't really come to events, education days and different things. And when they see a speaker list that includes one or two speakers on, it could be addiction, it could be, you know, HR issues to do with mental health or mental health planning. It's amazing how many different people you see come along. And it's, very, very positive. So I want to jump on to, you've started recording with a number of different directors, and tell us a little bit about who you're talking to and what kind of subjects are coming up.
So varied. I think it's important that I probably start it with, it's been amazing how open, you know, every individual that I've had the pleasure of having a great conversation. It's very informal. So obviously Terry Tennants has been on it, you know, I had to get the man at the top.
Yes.
So me and Terry spoke about, you know, his background of coming from, you know, immigration side and different things, and, you know, trafficking and different things, such an insight into, you know, why he has to make time for himself, why it's so important. So we touched a lot about in the timing aspect, because again, as a funeral industry, that's very hard. We spoke to one of my own actually ex-clients who is general manager of Colourful Coffins, Kate,
right.
Who again was able to highlight that now she has 30 minutes a day for herself, and what a difference it makes to her life as a single mum of 3 boys, as well as balancing the business. Colourful Coffins is a big associate partner of SAFE, so yeah, the pressure on her shoulders is incredible amongst working with her family members. With past president, immediate past president, I should say, Mark Horton, but I got Mark and Becky to do it together.
The duo.
Apart from Mark making quite a few assumptions about Becky and her wine drinking, I did put a disclaimer on it that she's not an alcoholic, so I will say that again. But in particular, that's been one of my standout episodes so far, right, because the way that people do see Mark, for example, he shares different things, and I wouldn't want to take away from what he says. I think you have to listen to the podcast, see, but there is a Mark within that has to look after himself to be who he is. And we've had Helen Wathel on, and we spoke about, she did a 30-day alcohol-free challenge, and she's now 4 years into no alcohol.
Brilliant.
Stepped up her exercising, just makes her turn up differently, who she needs to be, which has had a positive impact on Charlotte and Beck, who then kindly came on and spoke about being a new mum. Balancing some, it's so many different aspects, but factoring in who we are as an industry, as individuals. So there's been met with Ines Caps as well. She did a lot with SAFE Next Gen. She's balancing being a mum as well as the next generation, but we kind of, she's women power, so we talk about female in the industry. And many more. Rebecca Hillier, who works with us with the Safe Wellbeing side of things in the background, so that was really an insightful conversation with Rebecca. She was like, I don't know what I can bring to a podcast, and I was like, well, we've had conversations now, and what about this? She went, oh yeah, and again, one of my standout conversation. Brian Elwood from Northern Ireland. So he is a big advocate of mental health. So he's flying the flag from the other side of the water. The likes of Scott.
Yeah, of course.
Scott Byrne, of course. He's very passionate about it, and actually, I think it was off the podcast, but he conducted a funeral of a young mum who is actually a fellow coach. The son of the deceased is a fellow coach, so it was very insightful to put that to Scott in a different way, and and things. So we've just brought a lot of different things that I've noted down over the years and put it to funeral directors and associate members and managing directors. Crosby Matthew had good conversations with both Ross and Sheila. So and many more that I cannot remember off the top of my head. But
there's lots of content.
So far, there's so much, and I would just encourage everyone to take some time to between hospital runs, between offices, going home at night. If you do exercise or you do go for a walk at night, grab a listen, because it's so insightful, it's so authentic, and it's just a joy that to see what we're able to speak, and everybody's on the same. We've all got different experiences, but we're all sharing in the same thing of trying to be us as well as who we are in the industry.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's fantastic, and I was delighted when we had the original conversation about doing it, and you were the only person to do this. Do you know what I mean? It was just like, it has to be you. I'm going to leave it with one thing. If you've got any tips or advice to anybody who's watching this, there maybe obviously this is the first one in the series, they haven't gone through them yet, and they might just be having a little bit of a struggle day to day. Have you got any tips or advice for anyone?
Yeah. Now, this is a question that I'm going to ask everyone on the podcast, because I think it's important. I could have done with a lot of this when I was going through certain struggles. So yeah, I think a quote is, it's okay not to be okay, no matter what anyone says back to you on that comment. You know, you live in your reality, and I say the 5-minute rule. The 5-minute rule is so important. So 5 minutes can really change how you are in terms of how you turn up for maybe your next appointment, your next family walking through the door, or the next pressure situation and environment that you're having to step into. And sometimes it even comes down to hiding in the toilet for 5 minutes just to give yourself some time. So just a tip is, remember the rule number 5. Look at your hand, you've got 5 fingers, or, you know, like, you've got 5 minutes, and that 5 minutes can really make a difference. It has done to me, and many of the conversations I've had, you realise that 5 minutes could and has helped certain individuals that I've had conversations with so far. So yeah, just take that 5 minutes and know that it's okay in that 5 minutes to not be okay. It's temporary, and it will get better.
Fabulous. Amazing advice, Katie. Thank you so much. And everyone watching, I encourage you to watch the podcast series from start to finish, and I'm sure there'll be more recorded over time. Katie, thank you.
Thanks, Nick.